She sat across from me, her fingers nervously circling the rim of her coffee cup as though the motion alone could stop the words spilling from her lips. The cafe was quiet, the kind of place tucked away on a corner where nobody came unless they knew it was there. That's why we liked it, a safe little cocoon for moments like this. The world outside went on as usual, cars moving, people rushing, but inside, time stretched thin between us. Her eyes flicked up to meet mine, and for a heartbeat, I thought I saw the answer I had been waiting for, the permission, the possibility. But then she exhaled, her shoulders dropping, and the words came out like a blade slicing through me, "I'll never leave him." I had known, deep down, that this was where our path might end. She was married. Tied to him by years of history, by obligation, by fear. But hearing it out loud was like drowning in cold water. My chest tightened, my throat burned, and I fought to keep my face composed. I didn't want her to see me break. "You don't understand," she said quickly, almost as though she was the one begging me for forgiveness. Her hand reached across the table, grazing mine with the faintest touch. My body betrayed me, leaning toward her warmth even as my heart screamed at me to pull away. "It's not that I don't want to," she whispered. "It's that I can't." And there it was, the cruel divide between wanting and doing. Between desire and duty. I stared at her, this woman who had turned my entire world upside down, and wondered how it was possible to feel so alive and so devastated at the same time. The memory of her lips on mine in the office parking lot only a week earlier pulsed in my veins. The taste of her, the way her hands had trembled when she kissed me, the way she had melted into me like she had been waiting years for that exact moment. How could something that real be reduced to an apology over coffee? I wanted to scream, to demand why she would ignite this fire inside me only to pour water on it. But instead, I nodded. Because I loved her too much to push her away. "I get it," I lied. She smiled weakly, relief flickering across her face. She didn't know that her words would haunt me, replaying in the lonely hours of the night when I lay awake wondering why I wasn't enough. She didn't know that her confession would become the echo of our love, the shadow that followed us everywhere. She told me she would never leave him. But in that moment, all I could think was, then why does it feel like you already belong to me? It started with something small. Isn't that always the way? Big storms are born from the quietest clouds. We worked in the same office, a corporate world full of gray walls and endless deadlines. She had been there longer than me, well-respected, admired for her charm and sharp intelligence. The first time I saw her, really saw her, she was standing by the window in the break room, her hair catching the sunlight like copper fire. She laughed at something a coworker said, and it was the kind of laugh that drew people in, open, warm, and utterly captivating. I told myself it was just admiration at first. She was married, after all. I saw the ring glinting on her hand every time she gestured during meetings. And yet, something about her pulled at me, made me notice things no one else did. The way she fiddled with that ring whenever her nerves spiked. The way her smile faltered at the mention of her husband's name, so quick and subtle most people missed it. I didn't. One late evening, we were the last two left in the office. The building was quiet, the hum of computers and the flicker of fluorescent lights our only companions. We worked in silence, side by side, until she reached for a file at the same moment I did. Our fingers brushed, and neither of us moved right away. It was such a tiny thing, skin on skin, just a fraction of a second, but it sent a rush of electricity through me so strong I had to bite the inside of my cheek to stop myself from gasping. Her eyes flicked up to mine, wide and startled, but instead of pulling away, she left her hand there. Just resting against mine. Time seemed to suspend itself, the air between us thick with something unspoken. And then, just as quickly, she drew back, muttering something about needing to finish her work. But the way her cheeks flushed told me everything I needed to know, she had felt it too. After that night, something shifted between us. She started finding reasons to stop by my desk. Asking questions she already knew the answers to. Bringing me coffee by accident when she ordered too many. I pretended not to notice, but inside, I was unraveling. The tension built slowly, like the tightening of a violin string. One day, during lunch, she leaned closer than she needed to, her perfume wrapping around me like a spell. My breath caught, and when our eyes met, there was no mistaking the heat there. She looked away quickly, but her hand brushed mine under the table. It wasn't an accident. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and whispered to myself, "You're in trouble." Because I knew, with every beat of my heart, that I was falling for a married woman. The air between us grew heavier with each passing day, filled with a charge we both pretended not to notice. But pretending only worked for so long. It happened one night in the office parking lot. We had stayed late again, finishing up reports, the glow of computer screens reflecting off tired eyes. She was quiet, distracted, as though her thoughts had been miles away all evening. When we finally packed up, the building already empty, we walked out together into the cool night. The parking lot was half-lit, one flickering lamp casting a pale glow over our cars. She stopped by her car door and hesitated. I thought she was about to say goodnight, but then she turned to me, her face soft, uncertain. "Do you ever," she started, then trailed off, her eyes searching mine. "Ever what?" I asked, my heart already racing. She took a step closer. So close I could smell the faint trace of her perfume, something floral with a hint of spice. My breath caught. She looked down at the ground, then back at me, and in that instant, I knew. The world blurred around us. I don't remember deciding to move, but suddenly I was kissing her. Or maybe she kissed me. All I know is our lips met, trembling, hungry, desperate. It wasn't polished or planned, it was raw, electric, a collision of everything we had been holding back. Her hands found my face, fingers digging into my skin as though she was terrified I'd pull away. I didn't. I couldn't. I pressed harder, tasting her, feeling the heat of her mouth against mine. She gasped into me, her breath uneven, and that sound alone nearly undid me. When we finally broke apart, she was shaking. So was I. Her eyes glistened with something I couldn't name, fear, maybe, or longing, or both at once. "This is wrong," she whispered, but her hands didn't leave me. They were still cupping my face, still anchoring me to her. "Then why does it feel so right?" I whispered back. She stared at me, her lips parted, her chest rising and falling rapidly. Then, without answering, she kissed me again. Harder this time, as if admitting something she couldn't put into words. The kiss deepened, her tongue brushing against mine, and I melted into her. My hand slid around her waist, pulling her closer, feeling the warmth of her body press against mine. Every nerve in me was alive, every inch of me consumed by her. We finally pulled apart, breathless, both of us knowing there was no going back. The line had been crossed, and whatever we were before had changed forever. She pressed her forehead to mine, her voice barely audible. "I don't know what I'm doing." I held her tighter, my heart racing. "Yes, you do," I whispered. Because we both knew exactly what had just begun. Once that first kiss happened, there was no turning back. It started small, stolen moments in hallways, lingering touches in the elevator, lips brushing against each other in dark corners of the office where no one would see. We became experts in silence, in pretending, in carrying out conversations while our eyes betrayed us. And yet, it wasn't enough. Wanting her was an ache that consumed me. The first time we booked a hotel room together, my hands were trembling so much I almost dropped the key card. She laughed at my nervousness, a soft, breathless laugh, but when she closed the door behind us and leaned against it, her laughter turned into something else entirely, need. We barely made it to the bed. Her lips were on mine, urgent and desperate, pulling me into a kiss that left me dizzy. Her hands roamed over me, as if she had been starved for years and I was the feast she had been denied. I felt the heat of her body pressed against mine, the weight of her surrender, the shiver that ran through her when I traced my lips along her neck. Every touch was a revelation. I memorized the curve of her waist, the softness of her skin, the way she gasped when my hand slipped under her blouse. She whispered my name like a prayer, like a plea, and I realized I had never been needed like this before. The night stretched endlessly. We moved slowly at first, exploring, discovering, savoring. Then faster, hungrier, our bodies colliding with all the force of years of repression breaking free. I kissed every inch of her, worshipping her, claiming her, making her mine in ways words never could. And when she finally cried out beneath me, her body arching, her nails digging into my back, I knew I would never be the same. But with passion came shadows. Afterward, as we lay tangled in sheets that smelled of us, her face turned somber. She traced circles on my skin with her finger and whispered, "I don't know how long I can keep this up." I wanted to say, forever. I wanted to tell her I didn't care if we had to live in stolen nights and borrowed time, as long as she was with me. But I bit back the words, because I knew what she meant. She wasn't just mine. At least, not yet. The following weeks became a blur of lies and longing. She told her husband she had late meetings. I told friends I was working overtime. We carved out our love in the shadows, feeding on moments that vanished as quickly as they came. And every time, just before she left, she would look at me with those haunted eyes and whisper the line that cut me open every single time, "I'll never leave him." But the way her body clung to mine, the way she kissed me like I was her oxygen, I knew she was lying, even if she didn't know it yet. The cracks started small, the way hairline fractures run across glass long before it shatters. At first, she would only hint at her unhappiness. Over coffee during lunch breaks, she'd sigh and roll her eyes when his name came up. "He never listens," she'd say, or, "He doesn't notice when I change my hair." She brushed it off lightly, but I saw the heaviness in her eyes. One night, after hours of making love in the dim glow of a hotel lamp, her guard finally dropped. She lay naked beside me, her head resting on my chest, and whispered, "Sometimes, I wish I'd never met him." Her voice cracked as though she were confessing a sin. I kissed the top of her head and tightened my arms around her, wanting to believe that meant she was ready to choose me. But then, hours later, when the sheets had cooled and silence pressed in, she said it again, "I'll never leave him." The contradiction tore at me. With her, I felt everything: fire, passion, tenderness, belonging. But with him, she carried her vows, her duty, her fear of being judged. It was as though she had split herself in two. Her body was mine, but her name, her life, her home belonged to him. And yet, little by little, the life she had with him began to bleed into what we shared. She told me about the arguments, the way he snapped at her for being late, the way he dismissed her feelings, the way his affection came only when it was convenient for him. She never called it abuse, never labeled it, but I could hear it in her voice. She was tired of being invisible. One night, after another fight with him, she showed up at my door without warning. Her mascara was smudged, her hair damp from the rain, her hands trembling. "I just needed to see you," she whispered before collapsing into my arms. I led her inside, kissed away her tears, and held her until her shaking stopped. Later, when we made love, there was a desperation in her that hadn't been there before. She clung to me like I was the only thing holding her together, whispering over and over, "Don't let me go." I didn't. I couldn't. But when dawn came, reality returned. She sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, her wedding ring glinting in the pale light. "I can't keep doing this," she said softly. "But I don't know how to stop." Her words carved into me like knives. Because neither of us could stop. We were already in too deep. The cracks in her marriage were widening, but instead of feeling hope, I felt fear. Because I knew sooner or later, she would be forced to choose. And she kept telling me I wasn't the choice she could make. Still, when she left that morning, she kissed me like I was the only thing real in her world. And maybe I was. Loving her in secret had begun to feel like drowning. Every stolen night was intoxicating, but the mornings after left me emptier than before. I was her escape, her hidden world of passion and tenderness, but never her reality. And I couldn't live on scraps of love forever. One evening, after weeks of feeling the weight of our secret pressing harder against my chest, I finally broke. She had just slipped into my apartment, her hair pulled back, her lips still swollen from the hurried kiss we shared in the hallway. She smelled like him, his cologne clinging faintly to her jacket, and the thought of her going back to him after touching me made my heart ache with a sharp, unbearable intensity. "I can't do this anymore," I said, my voice trembling as I paced the room. Her face fell instantly. "Don't say that." I turned to her, tears already stinging my eyes. "You keep telling me you'll never leave him. Do you know what that does to me? To us? You kiss me like I'm your heir, you hold me like I'm your lifeline, but then you go home to him. I can't just be your secret forever." She froze, her hand pressed against her chest as though my words had struck her physically. "It's not that simple," she whispered. "I have a life with him. A house. People would talk. My family. Your family doesn't wake up next to you in bed. Your family doesn't touch you the way I do." I cut her off, my voice breaking. "You're the one who has to live this life. And you're already halfway out of it, you just won't admit it." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. She blinked rapidly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Then suddenly, she snapped. "You think this is easy for me?" she shouted, her voice cracking. "Do you think I don't lie awake every night, torn in half? I love you. God help me, I do. But I can't just erase everything else with a snap of my fingers." Her confession stopped me cold. She had never said it so plainly before, "I love you." The anger drained out of me, replaced by raw ache. I stepped closer, cupping her face in my hands. "Then be brave enough to choose it." Her tears spilled over then, hot and fast, sliding down her cheeks. We kissed with the taste of salt between us, desperation pulling us together like magnets. The fight turned into something else entirely, claws, lips, teeth, hands pulling clothes away, bodies colliding with fury and need. We devoured each other that night, the intensity almost violent, like we were both trying to prove something in the only language we had left, touch. When it was over, I lay next to her, my skin damp, my heart still racing. For a moment, she looked peaceful, her body curled against mine. But then she whispered, broken and exhausted, "I don't know if I can." Something inside me cracked. I kissed her forehead and turned away, because I couldn't bear to let her see the tears streaming down my face. That night, I thought I'd lost her. And then, weeks later, everything changed. It had been 3 weeks since I last saw her. 3 weeks of silence, of unanswered messages, of nights spent staring at my phone until my eyes burned. I told myself it was over, that she had chosen him, that the words she whispered, "I don't know if I can," were the final nail in our story. Still, I couldn't let go. Every corner of my apartment reminded me of her. The couch where we kissed, the sheets that still carried her perfume, the mug she always used when she stayed the night. She was everywhere, even in her absence. And then, one stormy night, a knock came at my door. I hesitated, heart pounding. When I opened it, she was standing there, drenched from the rain, her hair plastered to her cheeks, mascara streaked across her face. She was trembling, clutching a small suitcase like it was her lifeline. "I left him," she whispered, her voice breaking. For a moment, I couldn't move. The world seemed to tilt, her words echoing in my ears. "I left him." The sentence I had dreamed of hearing, the one I had almost given up on. I pulled her inside before she collapsed, and she fell into my arms, sobbing against my chest. I held her tightly, burying my face in her wet hair, whispering over and over, "You're here, you're safe, it's okay." When her tears finally slowed, she lifted her face to mine. Her eyes were red, swollen, but steady. "I couldn't do it anymore," she said softly. "Every time he touched me, I thought of you. Every night I lay beside him, I wished it was you. I've been living a lie, and I can't. Not anymore." My throat closed up with emotion. I kissed her then, not with desperation, but with something softer, reverence. She kissed me back, slow and deep, like we had all the time in the world. That night was unlike any other. For the first time, there was no guilt, no need to rush, no fear of being caught. We undressed each other slowly, carefully, as if we were unwrapping a gift we had both waited far too long to open. I traced my fingers over her skin, memorizing her anew, not as someone's wife, but as mine. We made love tenderly at first, savoring every sigh, every shiver, every whispered I love you that slipped from her lips. Then, with a growing hunger, as though we were claiming each other fully at last. Her moans filled the room, raw and unrestrained, and when she cried out my name, I felt something inside me shatter and rebuild all at once. Afterward, we lay tangled together, our bodies still humming from the intensity. The rain tapped softly against the windows, and for the first time I felt peace. She was beside me, truly beside me, with no one else waiting for her return. She stroked my hair, her voice quiet but certain. I'm finally yours. And I believed her. The days after she left him were not simple. Love, I discovered, is rarely simple. But it was real, and that was enough. She moved in with me at first, her suitcase still sitting half unpacked in the corner of my bedroom. The first few weeks were a blur of emotions. There were moments of joy so bright I thought my chest might burst, cooking breakfast together in the morning, laughing in the shower, waking up to her soft kisses instead of empty sheets. For the first time I got to love her in the daylight, without hiding. But there were also moments of fear. Late at night, she would sometimes stare at the ceiling, her eyes shadowed by doubt. Did I do the right thing? She would whisper. I'd kiss her temple and answer, yes. You chose yourself. You chose love. And slowly, she began to believe it too. Her old life still tugged at her. There were phone calls she ignored, mutual friends who didn't understand, whispers from people who judged her. But she stood firm, her hand always reaching for mine, her voice steady when she said, I'm where I'm supposed to be. With time, the shadows faded, and what remained was us. Just us. We built a life together piece by piece. Weekend trips to the coast, lazy afternoons curled up with books, evenings where I cooked while she danced barefoot in the kitchen. I learned the shape of her laughter when she was truly happy, free of guilt. I learned the way she liked her coffee, the songs she hummed when she thought no one was listening, the way her fingers always sought mine in crowded places, like she needed the world to see we belonged together. Sometimes, she still whispered the words she once said in the cafe, I'll never leave him. But now she would say them with a soft, almost disbelieving smile, adding, and yet, I did. I would pull her close, kiss her gently, and remind her, you didn't leave him for me. You left him for you. For the life you deserved. Years have passed now, but even still, there are nights when I look at her across the room and feel the same ache I did the first time our hands brushed over a file in the office. Only now, the ache is sweet, not painful. She is mine, and I am hers, not in secret, not in stolen hours, but in every ordinary and extraordinary moment of our lives. She once told me she would never leave him. And maybe, in that moment, she believed it. But love has a way of breaking the chains we think will bind us forever. In the end, she chose me. She chose us. And that choice has made all the difference.